Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. But on to the point. Someone linked me a video that Kinobody, aka Greg O'Gallagher, did, in which he made a statement that someone had said, hey, what do you think of this? He's saying that it's not healthy to be 15% body fat or higher. Saying it's not healthy, at least if you care about ideal health. Is there any truth to that? And they thought I'm going to disagree with it. And that's a very controversial statement. And while I'm going to say I don't fully agree with what Greg said here, there is a degree of truth to it. Okay, there is actually a degree of truth to what he's saying, and I'm not going to disagree with him either. Rather, I'm going to make some finer points of it. But he does kind of raise that interesting point of, are we talking about just being fit and healthy? Or are we talking about peak health? Are we talking about optimal health? And I think that there's a little bit of difference to be had there. And this is going to be a case of people saying, well, Jason, you haven't done that. Well, just because I haven't done it doesn't mean that it's not right. You guys understand the difference? I can say, hey, this is probably ideal for optimal health, even though I don't do it. Just like, someone who might partake in certain lifestyles they know aren't the healthiest in the world, they can still admit that maybe that's not optimal. Okay, and that's the difference here. Because now he did kind of imply that, look, he stays under 10% year round. And what I'm going to say, for a lot of guys, that actually isn't healthy. For a lot of guys, that can be problematic, particularly depending upon how you get there. And here's what I would say. If we're going to talk about peak athleticism, peak health, let's set the whole physique sort of competition and all that stuff aside, because that really has no place. People who are bulking and cutting all the time, like if someone's dropping very lean and then they're back up at 16, 17% body fat every single year and they cut down, that isn't healthy. Like the continual bulking and cutting cycle is not healthy. That's one reason you guys have seen me lately doing recomps. That's all I've done. I've been recomping. I was like 17% body fat at 215 December last year, and I've pretty much recomped this year. A little bit of lean bulking because I'm 220 now, a little bit of fat loss. It's been recomposition. You're not seeing me actually do any changes in scale weight, at least not more than 1 pound inside of a month, right? It's been very, very little change in body weight. And I have a lot of my clients do recompositions for the most part. And generally I tell guys, unless you have a reason, I don't think people should generally be bulking and cutting after their first year of training, unless you're forced to for some reason. And the reason I say that, the whole bulking and cutting cycle isn't good. It's not ideal. And yeah, if you need to gain a bunch of muscle and a bunch of weight your first year, you probably do need to bulk. Okay, if you're a skinny guy. If you're fat your first year of training, you probably need to cut the entire first year of your training, get down to a healthy body fat. Outside of that first year, if we were to do things perfect, if we did everything perfect from someone, you took someone from day one into a fitness lifestyle, if they were skinny, they'd bulk. If they were overweight, they would cut their first year. Everybody else should probably do nothing but recomp and lean bulk. What do I mean lean bulk? I don't know, gain a pound or less per month. That's slow of bulking. Meaning over 6 months, gain 5 or 6 pounds of body weight. That would be a lean bulk. And outside of that, recomp. If you're not lean bulking, you should be recomping. You should be working on gaining muscle and losing fat slowly at the same time with optimized training. That would be perfect. You need to be bulking and cutting. But I've been doing that, and you guys have noticed I'm probably down at 15%, possibly lower at this point, and I'm going to continue to just recomp. Ideally, I do need to be under 15%. And in fact, I'll agree with him. I'm going to say Greg is right. If you're worried about peak health, probably need to be under 15%. Now, what's the ideal health range? Medically, every medical doctor will say that a healthy man is going to be between 10 and 20%, right? A lot of people can't go under 10% without health issues. Greg is lucky in that regard. But I will point out not everybody can do that. Okay, if we're talking about optimal health, probably 10% for most guys is a lower threshold. And I'm not saying what Greg has done is necessarily unhealthy, but he is able to sustain it. Not everybody can genetically do that. And anything above 20%, your health will eventually decline. It might be okay for now, but 10 years from now it won't be. You will suffer health problems for being above 20% as a male. You will eventually. So we know that's the healthy range, but are we talking about just being healthy, or are you talking about peak health? and peak athleticism and fitness. Okay, that matters a lot too, because that all goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Right? The more athletic we are, generally, the healthier we are also. Performance matters. And that's usually kind of your sweet spot for nutrient partitioning for athletes. Strength to weight ratio, things like that, tends to happen in that maybe 10 to 14% range. You get under 15%. Probably, unless you genetically can do it, don't want to really drop under 10%. That's your sweet spot for health. That's your sweet spot for nutrient partitioning for performance. And you might actually have pretty good blood work. Like if you're fit, if you lift and you're conditioned and everything, you're probably going to have good blood work at 18% body fat. You probably will. But kind of the point that he comes over to, or you just want to be healthy, or are you trying to optimize it? Well, if you're trying to optimize it, I can promise you that if you cut slowly, you don't do a stupid cut, you do a nice, slow, steady body weight drop or recomposition. If you went from 18% down to 13% and gained a small amount of muscle while doing so, you know what? Your blood work would probably look even better. He's not really wrong there. Did you get under 15% versus the higher end of the healthy range, you were probably going to see some improvement in your health markers. You're probably going to see that. So I guess the question we're begging when you look at what he's saying is healthy versus optimized healthy. And there is definitely a difference between the two, and he is right there. The only caveat might be that not everyone can get as lean as he does, but the point that he makes, and I think it's the valid point, and this is what I'm going to take from it. We can disagree on the finer point of 7-8% body fat. And we can agree to disagree there, but I think even Greg will agree with this because he does watch my stuff when I do these and he does chime in from time to time in the comments. Here's where I think we will agree. You need to find a rough body fat that you can stay at. Okay? You can't be bulking and cutting all the time. You realistically need to find a really healthy body fat for you. And if it's 8%, it's 8%. I'm going to say most people it's not going to be. But if you can be healthy at 8%, you probably need to stay at around there. If you're peak health and you feel really, really good at 12% body fat, your performance is great, your recovery is great, you probably need to stay around there. In other words, you need to stay consistent. This changing 4 or 5% or 6% or 7% body fat percentage throughout the year, that isn't healthy. All right, that is not good for ideal health, and I can tell you that's not even good for athletes. Because that's our other thing. What do we really care about? If we step away from the goofy, stupid physique competition world, which has no place in the fitness world, what do we care about? We care about health and we care about athleticism. That's usually what we care about. Those are our other two big things that we would be looking at. If you're fluctuating a lot on your body fat percentage, your performance suffers. You tend to lose muscle easy when you do the cuts. You tend to sometimes lose some nutrient partitioning benefits when you bulk. There's a lot of different things that happen. That realistically, let's come over to the point, guys should generally be focused on either recomposition or making just lean gains, right? You shouldn't be bulking up sloppy if you don't need to. It's not necessary. It's not necessary even to gain muscle. It's not necessary for the advanced lifter to gain muscle. Okay, I'm in my 40s and I'm an advanced lifter. I've seen a very slow, steady recomp this year, and I think I'm going to continue to do it. I don't see any reason not to. I have my clients do the same thing. It can be done. It's the harder route. It's the harder route, but your health tends to be better for it. Health tends to be better for it. So when you're gaining weight at that point, you're probably not going to gain more than a pound in a month. And you know what? At least you know that it's lean gains at that point. If your training is on point, your strength is going up, your numbers are going up, right? You're probably doing pretty close to ideal. So I think the take home here of where I might disagree on some of the nuance points, I think the larger topic here, I think he is largely right. He is largely right, and I'm not going to disagree with those points that if you're going to get lean, you need to stay lean. In other words, if you're cutting down to a certain body fat percentage, you need to pick a lifestyle that's going to take you there carefully and slowly without issues, and you probably need to stay there. So if you're cutting down to a body fat that you can't sustain for a year straight, that's a problem. There's a problem with your method. What you're doing isn't going to be healthy. And it may or may not be that you cut to a body fat that you couldn't sustain, that maybe you had the ability to, but your lifestyle and the psychological approach of how you approached it wasn't good. All right? If you approach it the way a lot of these, again, as he pointed out, the Instagram guys do, they just starve themselves and do a bunch of cardio and maybe blast some gear to get there, well, and then they rebound. That's not useful. That's not valuable. And even you guys who are like, well, I want to cut and look good. You're telling me I shouldn't look good. And I'm not saying that. But you don't look good if you rebound. If you're cutting to a body fat that you can't stay at for a year, what's the point? You want to look good for 8 weeks, and then you want to go back to looking how you think looks bad? Well, that's stupid. That's completely moronic. That's one reason physique competition is moronic. It's not even good for you psychologically to not think that you look good year-round. If you think that you look good part of the year, you need to find a way to stay looking good year-round then if it's important to you. So he's got, again, a point there. I'm not going to disagree with his larger point. I think he's onto something. And I think we're all going to agree with that. We do know that ideal health is, realistically, needs to be staying under 15% body fat. That's probably your upper cap of it's probably time to start trimming down when you're at 15%. If optimal health and athleticism are your goals, right? Doesn't mean that's everyone's goals, but if it is, that's you need to be under 15%. You probably need to stay there. And we shouldn't be bouncing around body fat too much. Realistically, you need to find a certain level of leanness that if you can get there, you need to find a way to stay there generally. Barring physique competition, which I don't approve of anyway. So, therefore, since we don't approve of it on this channel, there's no need to address it. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.